Is there still common law marriage in Pennsylvania? Hi, I'm Alicia Kinchlow, the owner of Kinchlow Law, a family law practice based out of the Philadelphia area. And in Pennsylvania, we have had something called common law marriage. And what this means is that two parties have gotten together and decided to hold themselves out as married, but did not officially get married through court records or documents. So let's talk a little bit about what that means for those types of marriages and whether or not you still can do that. As always, these videos are not legal advice. They are for informational purposes only, and you want to consult with an attorney licensed in your state about the facts specific to your case. Now, in November of 2004, the state of Pennsylvania abolished common law marriages, but it did not get rid of any marriages that were intact before January 1st of 2005. So let's talk a little bit about what that means. When it comes down to establishing a common law marriage, the courts have said that what you need is basically words in the present tense that are exchanged between the parties, generally within the view of other people, so in the public, basically indicating that the two parties intend to be married, to hold themselves out as husband and wife. Okay, so that's the basic it's the foundation that you need to be able to establish a common law marriage. Now, in certain situations, and kind of what was kind of the impetus behind some of the abolishing of common law marriage in Pennsylvania was that third parties would come into play. So, for example, if there was an insurance agency, there was a workers' comp claim, if there was an estate matter, now you have this situation where you're trying to prove that these people were married through common law where one of them is deceased. It's a little bit easier when both parties are arguing over the proceeds from a potential divorce or something regarding the marital estate. But when one is deceased, it's a little bit more difficult. And also, the courts acknowledge that in a case, I believe it was PNC versus a workers' comp claim, um, the issue became that these third parties had no idea of some of the responsibilities that they were taking on by perhaps employing certain people or providing certain types of plans to people because there were no court documents to establish that there was not just a person but also a spouse that they were responsible to for certain types of claims. So when it comes to matters like that, that was enough for the courts who had already looked at common law marriage as a form of perjury and fraud and under great scrutiny to go the step further and actually abolish that. Now, they did not do it retroactively. That means that any marriages, common law marriages that were established before January 1st, 2005 can still exist. So when we ask the question, are there still common law marriages before that exist in Pennsylvania? The answer could very well be yes. If there are people who were married before 2005, and I'm sure there are, who are still holding themselves out as married, who have not gotten divorced, then absolutely there's still the potential for there to be common law marriages out there. And there still is a need for those parties if they were to split and remarry someone else to actually get divorced. And then there could still be a marital estate. Now there are some different rules that apply, and mostly it comes to a burden of proof of establishing whether or not there was a marriage and whether or not certain things are part of the marital estate, which can be difficult when you don't have certain types of documents. Now, kind of taking another step aside from talking about the establishment of a common law marriage, I want to talk about it in the situation or the context of where one of the parties is deceased. When one of the parties is deceased, the courts have held that instead of being able to show that the parties used words in the present tense, so again, exchange words in the present tense, willing to hold themselves out as married, there can be a presumption, a rebuttable presumption, but a presumption that parties who allege this, who cohabitated for a period, I think the courts have said 7 years or longer, and who held themselves out as husband and wife, there could be a rebuttable presumption that these parties were common law married. Some of the things the courts have looked to continue to establish whether or not two parties were married have been, how did they sign on to deeds? Did they sign on as spouses? How did they file their tax returns? Did they file filing jointly? Did they wear rings or exchange rings? Did one party take the other person's surname or their last name? These are some of the things that can be used to show that there's evidence that the parties had intent and actually did what they needed to do to exchange words and hold themselves out as married. Now, there's a case that came a little bit later where I believe the decision was in 2011, where a party tried to use some of that information to establish a common law marriage, but was unsuccessful in doing so. And that is just where they had actually never exchanged words in the present tense to indicate that they would be married. Now, they indicated that they will be married, which means future tense. But the court was very clear here that you can't use words in the future tense or even in the past tense to kind of just say that there was some marriage that existed. It needs to be that we are at this time joining together and deciding to hold ourselves out as husband and wife. All right, I hope that shed a little bit of light on common law marriage and how it's looked at right now in Pennsylvania, understanding that there are, I'm sure, still some common law marriages out there where people are still together. Hopefully they stay together and don't get divorced, but if they do need to go through the divorce procedures. I'll try to do another video on that and kind of what that looks like and some of the issues that arise from there. If you have any questions about common law marriage or anything else that I covered in this video, or if there are other topics you would like me to cover, remember we're doing a video every day of 2021 on divorce, custody, or support. So if there's any topics you would like me to cover, make sure you drop them in the comments, hit subscribe, and hit the notification bell. So anytime we drop a new video, you'll be sure to receive a notification about it. All right, until next time, take care.